The maintenance tunnels of Kepler Station hummed with the constant thrum of recycled air and artificial gravity generators. Alex Rivera wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished replacing a corroded junction box in Sector 7, the engineering bay that served the station's diverse alien quarters. 3 years into his assignment aboard humanity's first truly integrated interspecies station, he'd grown accustomed to the bizarre sights, sounds, and smells that came with housing over 40 different species under one massive rotating hull. Just another Tuesday in paradise, he muttered, gathering his tools. The joke never got old, even if paradise happened to be a metal cylinder spinning through the void between Earth and the Centauri systems. Alex had volunteered for the Kepler, posting specifically because it was as far from ordinary as a human could get. Fresh out of MIT with degrees in mechanical and xenotechnical engineering, he'd wanted adventure, challenge, and maybe a little romance with someone who didn't already know his entire dating history from high school. The first two he'd found in abundance, the third remained frustratingly elusive. As he shouldered his toolkit and headed toward the exit, the massive bay doors began their slow automated closure sequence. The Kepler station operated on a strict schedule, and maintenance windows closed precisely at 14:30 station time. Alex quickened his pace, but just as he reached the threshold, he noticed someone else approaching from the opposite direction. She was tall, taller than him by at least 6 inches, with skin that seemed to contain captured starlight, shifting between pale silver and soft blue as she moved. Her hair flowed like liquid mercury, and when she looked up at him, her eyes held depths that reminded him of nebulae he'd seen in long-range telescope feeds. She wore the flowing, asymmetrical robes typical of the Vorthani, one of the more elegant species aboard the station. Alex had seen Vorthani before, but never up close. They were known for being intensely private, rarely interacting with other species except in formal diplomatic settings. This one carried what looked like research equipment, some kind of crystalline scanning device that pulsed with soft, rhythmic light. The door continued its inexorable descent. In a few seconds it would seal completely and she'd be trapped on the wrong side until the next maintenance cycle. Without thinking, Alex stepped back and held the massive door open with one hand, bracing his shoulder against its weight. "After you," he said with a friendly smile, gesturing for her to pass through. The Vorthani woman stopped dead in her tracks. Her equipment clattered to the floor as her hands flew to her mouth, eyes widening in what could only be described as shock. For a long moment, she simply stared at him, her luminescent skin cycling rapidly through blues, purples, and golds, colors Alex had never seen a Vorthani display before. Then slowly and with tremendous dignity, she lowered herself into what was unmistakably a formal bow. Not a casual nod or polite acknowledgement, but a full ceremonial bow that seemed to carry the weight of ritual and tradition. Alex stammered, still holding the door. "It's really no problem, just didn't want you to get stuck." She straightened, and he caught a glimpse of something that might have been tears in those nebula eyes before she gathered her equipment and glided past him through the doorway. As she passed, she whispered something in her native language, a melodic phrase that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Alex let the door close and stood there for a moment, completely baffled. In 3 years of working alongside dozens of alien species, he'd learned that cultural misunderstandings were common. Usually they involved food, personal space, or accidentally insulting someone's ancestral spirits. But he'd never gotten such an intense reaction from simple politeness. "Weird," he said to himself, then shrugged and headed back to his quarters. If he'd turned around, he might have seen the Vorthani woman standing in the corridor, one hand pressed against the sealed door, her skin now glowing with warm golden light that had nothing to do with the station's artificial illumination. By the time Alex reached his quarters in the human residential sector, he'd already forgotten about the encounter. He had a shift report to file, a video call with his sister back on Earth, and a standing date with a beer and the latest episode of an old Earth sitcom. He had no idea that across the station, in the Vorthani quarter's most sacred chamber, ceremonial bells were beginning to ring for the first time in over 3 centuries. Alex woke to find his quarter's message indicator blinking insistently. 3 messages had arrived during his sleep cycle, which was unusual. Most station communications came through official channels during duty hours. He rubbed his eyes and activated the display, expecting maintenance schedules or perhaps a note from his friend Jamie in hydroponics. Instead, he found himself staring at what could only be described as GIFs. The first message contained a holographic projection of a crystal formation unlike anything he'd ever seen. It pulsed with internal light, creating patterns that seemed to shift and dance in three-dimensional space. The accompanying text, translated through the station's universal language matrix, read, "For the one who opened the sacred threshold, may your path shine with the light of 1,000 stars. The families of Thessera." "Thessera," Alex murmured. "That must be the woman from yesterday." The second message contained an audio file. When he played it, his quarters filled with harmonics that made his bones vibrate pleasantly. A complex musical composition that somehow conveyed emotions he couldn't name. The translation software struggled with the accompanying text, offering a song poem of gratitude, tarn devotion, eternal bond, beginning for the threshold keeper who has honored our daughter. The third message made Alex sit down hard on his bed. It was a meal packet containing what looked like exotic fruits and grain-based delicacies, but the message text made his head spin. Nutritional offerings for the bonded male of Thessara Vash Korhaven, as dictated by the customs of deep joining. May your strength be her strength, your breath her breath, until the stars grow cold. Bonded male? Alex stared at the screen. What the hell? 20 minutes later, he was pounding on the door of Commander Elena Torres, the station's head of xenocultural affairs. Torres answered in her robe, coffee mug in hand, looking like she'd been expecting him. "Let me guess," she said before he could speak. "You're the human who chose the Vorthani archaeologist yesterday." "I held a door open," Alex protested, following her into her office quarters. "How does that translate to choosing anyone?" Torres settled behind her desk and activated her holographic display, pulling up files that made Alex's head hurt just looking at them. "The Vorthani have one of the most complex courtship protocols in known space," she explained. "Most of their rituals died out centuries ago when their homeworld became overcrowded, and they had to abandon traditional practices. But some customs remain sacred." She highlighted a section of text that began swimming with translation matrices. The threshold protocol was an ancient marriage proposal ritual. A male who held a door or passage open for an unmated female was declaring his intention to be her life guardian, to always ensure her path was clear, her way protected. Alex felt blood drain from his face. "But I was just being polite." "I know that. You know that. But the Saravash Korhaven and her entire extended family believe you just proposed according to a ritual that hasn't been used for over 300 years. Torres took a sip of coffee and studied him with barely concealed amusement. "Congratulations, by the way. She's apparently brilliant. Xenoarchaeology, 3 advanced degrees, comes from one of the oldest Vorthani houses." "This is insane." Alex paced the small office. "Can't we just explain it was a misunderstanding?" "You could try," Torres said doubtfully. "But the Vorthani don't really do casual anything. Their entire social structure is built around permanent bonds and lifetime commitments. Suggesting that you accidentally proposed to her might be interpreted as rejection, which could cause her to lose face with her family and colleagues." Before Alex could respond, Torres's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. She accepted it, and suddenly the office was filled with the translucent holographic image of a tall, elegant Vorthani male whose skin gleamed like polished bronze. "Commander Torres," the figure said, his voice carrying the musical quality Alex was beginning to associate with the species. "I am Korhaven Vash Thesson, honored father of Thessara Vash Korhaven. I seek audience with the human male Alexander Rivera to discuss bonding arrangements." Torres shot Alex a look that was equal parts sympathy and barely suppressed laughter. "Ah yes, honored Korhaven. I will arrange a meeting. May I ask what arrangements you wish to discuss?" "The traditional exchanges, of course. Gifts, family histories, compatibility testing, and the ceremony of joined paths." The hologram paused. "It has been many cycles since our family has had cause to perform the ancient ways. We are eager to honor the human who has chosen our daughter. Alex made frantic hand gestures at Torres, who ignored him completely. I see. And these arrangements, they would take place when? The sooner the better. My daughter speaks of nothing but her chosen mate's wisdom in recognizing the sacred moment. She has begun preparing her household shrine. The hologram flickered slightly. Please convey to Alexander Rivera that the families are pleased with her choice. His reputation as a skilled keeper of station harmony precedes him. After the communication ended, Alex slumped in his chair. Household shrine? Oh, that's actually kind of sweet, Torres said, pulling up more files. Vorthani females create a shared living space meditation area when they're planning to bond. It's sort of like registering for wedding gifts, but with more spiritual significance. Alex's personal communicator buzzed. A message from someone named Jax in security. Heard about your Vorthani situation. The betting pool is up to 500 credits on whether you'll go through with it. I've got money on yes. She's gorgeous. Another message, this one from Dr. Yuki in the medical. Base Alex, congratulations. I've prepared cultural briefing materials on Vorthani physiology and bonding customs. Some of it is quite fascinating. Come see me when you have time. A third message from his friend Carlos in engineering. Dude, the entire station is talking about your alien girlfriend. Half the species think it's romantic, the other half think you're insane. Either way, you're famous. Torres watched him scroll through increasingly ridiculous messages. You know, she said thoughtfully. You could do worse. The Vorthani live for centuries. They're incredibly loyal partners, and from what I understand, Thesara is considered quite a catch even by their standards. Are you seriously suggesting I should just go with this? I'm suggesting you might want to at least meet with her before you make any decisions. The cultural database says Vorthani are remarkably adaptable when they choose to be. Maybe she'd be open to a more gradual approach to whatever this is becoming. Alex's communicator buzzed again. This time it was a message directly from Thesara. Honored Alexander, if you would permit it, I would be grateful for the opportunity to speak with you. I understand our customs may seem strange to humans. Perhaps we might find common understanding. Thesara Vashkorhaven, keeper of ancient ways, daughter of star-touched lineages, and, if the fates allow, your willing companion. Despite everything, Alex found himself smiling at the formal yet hopeful tone. All right, he said to Torres. Set up a meeting, but somewhere public, and with cultural translators standing by. Smart. Man. Torres grinned. Conference room 7 tomorrow at 14 Mo, and Alex, you might want to research Vorthani courtship gifts. Apparently, you're expected to respond to the family's offerings with something appropriate. As Alex left Torres' office, his mind was spinning. 24 hours ago, his biggest concern had been a faulty atmospheric recycler. Now he was apparently engaged to an alien archaeologist he'd spoken exactly 7 words to. The really disturbing part? He was actually curious to learn more about her. The observation deck of Conference Room 7 overlooked the station's central hub, where dozens of species moved through the broad corridors in a constant flow of interstellar commerce and diplomacy. Alex arrived early, clutching a small package. He'd spent 3 hours selecting from the station's cultural exchange center. Inside was a piece of carved earth jade, something that had seemed appropriately formal and meaningful without being too presumptuous. He was reviewing his notes on Vorthani customs when the door chimed. Thesara entered with the fluid grace he remembered, but this time she wore simpler robes in deep blue that made her luminescent skin seem to glow with soft starlight. Her silver hair was arranged in an elaborate braid that revealed the delicate structure of her elongated ears. Alexander Rivera, she said, inclining her head formally. I am grateful you accepted this meeting. Please, just Alex, he said, standing, and I should probably apologize for the confusion about, well, everything. A translator unit sat discreetly on the table between them, but Thesara waved it aside. My standard is adequate for this conversation, she said, settling into the chair across from him. Her voice carried only the faintest accent, a musical quality that made even simple words sound like poetry. I studied human linguistics as part of my archaeological work. Alex blinked. You're an archaeologist? Xenoarchaeologist, specifically. I study the intersection of cultures across species, how civilizations influence each other through contact. She tilted her head slightly. It is why I recognize the significance of your gesture immediately. The threshold protocol appears, in the cultural practices of at least 12 species, always as a formal declaration of protective intent. But I was just being polite, Alex protested. It's basic manners where I come from. Yes, Thesera said, and something that might have been amusement flickered in her nebula eyes. I have spent the last day cycle researching human customs. Your politeness is quite remarkable, extending courtesy to strangers without expectation of reciprocity. It is refreshing. Alex found himself leaning forward. You've been researching humans? Extensively. She accessed a datapad and projected a holographic display between them. Human courtship rituals are fascinatingly direct compared to most species. You simply talk to each other, express interest, share experiences. There are no formal family negotiations, no compatibility testing, no ritual gift exchanges. Well, there are some gift exchanges, Alex said, thinking of the jade in his pocket. Speaking of which, he pushed the small package across the table. I wasn't sure what would be appropriate, but I wanted to respond to your family's kindness. Thesera unwrapped the jade carefully, her skin shifting to warm gold as she examined the carved surface. Earthstone, she said softly. This is beautiful, Alex. The craftsmanship is exquisite. It's supposed to represent harmony and balance, he said, feeling oddly nervous. I thought, given the circumstances, given that we are two people from different worlds trying to understand each other. She met his eyes directly. It is perfect. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both apparently surprised by how natural the conversation felt. Alex found himself studying her face, the way her expressions shifted with subtle changes in her skin's luminescence, how her eyes seemed to hold depths he could fall into. Can I ask you something? He said finally. What would have happened if I hadn't held that door open? Thesera's skin cycled through several colors before settling on a soft blue. I would have been sealed in the maintenance bay until the next cycle. Not dangerous, but inconvenient. I was carrying sensitive scanning equipment that needed to be recalibrated within specific time parameters. So I actually helped with your work? You prevented 3 days of delays and possibly corrupted data. She paused. But that is not why I was affected by your gesture. Alex, the threshold protocol has not been invoked in my family for over 7 generations. Most Vorthani consider it archaic, irrelevant to modern life. But I study ancient traditions. I understand their power, their meaning. And what does it mean to you? Alex asked quietly. Thesera's skin shifted to warm amber. It means someone saw me as worthy of protection, worthy of consideration. In the old days, it meant a male believed I deserved to have my path cleared of obstacles, my journey supported by another's strength. She looked down at the jade in her hands. Modern Vorthani bonding is practical. Family connections, genetic compatibility, shared resources. Romance is considered a luxury, not a foundation. But you don't agree with that? I study civilizations that lasted millennia because they honored both practical needs and emotional bonds, she said. Humans fascinate me because you somehow balance both naturally. You held a door open because it was kind, not because it served any purpose. That is remarkable. Alex felt something shift in his chest. Thesera, can I be completely honest with you? Please. I'm terrified by all of this. The family messages, the gifts, the formal ceremonies, but I'm also curious about you. You're brilliant, you're beautiful, and you're nothing like anyone I've ever met. If we could just start over, would you be interested in getting to know each other? Like humans do? Her skin brightened to a warm golden glow. You mean talking, sharing experiences? Discovering compatibility through interaction rather than formal evaluation? Exactly. Maybe we could have dinner sometime, somewhere neutral, where we can just be two people figuring out if we like each other. Thesera was quiet for a long time, her skin cycling through colors Alex was beginning to recognize as deep thought. Finally, she spoke. My family will be confused by this approach. They have already begun preparing bonding ceremonies. What would you tell them? That the human I have chosen wishes to honor both our traditions, to court me properly according to his customs before we proceed with mine. She looked up at him with something that might have been hope. Would that be accurate? Alex felt his heart skip. Yeah, he said. That would be accurate. Then I accept your invitation, Alex Rivera. But I should warn you. Vorthani courtship customs may seem strange to human sensibilities. How so? Her skin shifted to a playful pink. We are very direct about our feelings. We do not dissemble or play games with attraction. If I find you appealing, I will tell you. If I desire your company, I will make it known. That sounds refreshing, actually. Good. She stood, moving with liquid grace. Then I will tell you now that I find your eyes very beautiful, and I am curious about the texture of your hair. I would like to touch it, if you would permit it. Alex's breath caught. Yes, you can. Thesera moved around the table and stood close enough that he could smell something like starlight and growing things. She reached out tentatively, her fingers incredibly gentle as they touched his dark hair. Her skin was warm, warmer than he'd expected, and when she smiled, her whole face seemed to light up from within. Fascinating, she murmured. So different from Vorthani hair, but pleasing. I like the way it feels. Alex found himself reaching up to touch her hand. Your skin, he said wonderingly. It's like touching sunlight. Bioluminescent adaptation, she said, but her voice was softer now. We evolved on a world with variable star cycles. Our skin responds to emotion and environmental conditions. What does gold mean? He asked, noting the warm color spreading across her cheeks. Attraction, she said simply. Pleasure, contentment. They stood like that for a moment, hands touching, both of them apparently surprised by the immediate chemistry between them. Then Thesera stepped back, her professional composure returning. Dinner, she said. Tomorrow, perhaps. I know a place. In the neutral quarter that serves food compatible with both our physiologies. It's a date, Alex said, then paused. Is that the right word? Do Vorthani date? We court, she said, moving toward the door. But I think I prefer your human term. It suggests possibility, rather than inevitability. As she reached the door, she turned back. Alex? Thank you for holding the door open. Even if it was just politeness, it changed everything. After she left, Alex sat alone in the conference room, watching the flow of species through the hub below. His life had just gotten infinitely more complicated, but for the first time in years he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. His communicator buzzed with a message from Commander Torres. How did it go? The betting pool is up to 800 credits now. Alex smiled and typed back, Tell them to keep their money, I'm going to take this one slow. But even as he sent the message, he was already planning what to wear to dinner tomorrow. Alex had been dreaming of nebula eyes and golden skin when the emergency klaxon shattered his sleep. Red warning lights bathed his quarters as the station's automated voice echoed through the corridors. Code yellow. Atmospheric processing malfunction. In sectors 12 through 18, all non-essential personnel report to emergency stations. He was pulling on his engineering coveralls when his communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Chief Engineer Rodriguez. Rivera, need you in central processing now. We've got cascading failures across multiple life support systems. Grab your universal toolkit and run. The corridors were chaos. Aliens of dozens of species moving in organized evacuation patterns while maintenance crews rushed toward the affected sectors. Alex sprinted through the crowd, his mind already cycling through potential failure modes for the station's atmospheric systems. Central processing was a maze of pipes, processors, and monitoring stations that served as the lungs of Kepler Station. When Alex arrived, he found Rodriguez coordinating teams of engineers from 6 different species, all shouting reports in various languages, while holographic displays showed cascading system failures across multiple sectors. "What's the situation?" Alex called out. "Primary atmospheric processor is offline," Rodriguez said, not looking up from his displays. "Secondary systems are overloading trying to compensate. We've got 14 different species with incompatible atmospheric requirements, and if we can't balance the load, we're looking at life support failures within 6 hours." Alex studied the schematics flowing across the screens. The Kepler station's life support was a marvel of engineering, a complex network that could simultaneously maintain oxygen-nitrogen for humans, methane-hydrogen for the Kythrians, high pressure, argon for the rock-dwelling Zilari, and dozens of other atmospheric combinations. But it was also incredibly delicate. "What caused the primary failure?" he asked. "That's the problem," Rodriguez said grimly. "We don't know. The system just stopped responding to our commands. All the mechanical components are functional, but something is interfering with the harmonic resonance frequencies that control gas mixture ratios." "Harmonic resonance?" Alex frowned. "That's not standard human technology." "No, it's a hybrid system. We integrated Vorthani acoustic processing technology 5 years ago to handle the more complex atmospheric requirements." Rodriguez gestured to a section of the display showing wavelength patterns. "But none of our engineers understand how their harmonic systems actually work." Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cooling systems. "Do we have any Vorthani engineers on station?" "Just one. An archaeologist named Thesara something. But she's not trained in modern engineering systems." "Get her down here," Alex said immediately. "Now." "Rivera, she's a researcher, not..." "She studies how civilizations integrate their technologies," Alex interrupted. "And Vorthani harmonic processing is her people's specialty. Trust me on this." 20 minutes later, Thesara arrived in Central, processing wearing emergency coveralls that somehow still managed to look elegant on her tall frame. Her skin was cycling through rapid color changes, blues and purples that Alex was learning meant concern or stress. "Alex," she said, moving to his side. "How severe is the situation?" "Bad," he said, pulling up the diagnostic displays. "Our atmospheric processors use Vorthani harmonic technology, but something is disrupting the resonance frequencies. We can't figure out what." Thesara studied the wavelength patterns, her skin shifting to deep amber as she concentrated. "This is not a malfunction," she said after a moment. "Someone or something is broadcasting a counter-harmonic frequency. See here?" She pointed to subtle variations in the pattern. "These disruptions are too regular, too precisely timed to be random." "Sabotage?" Rodriguez asked. "Not necessarily. It could be accidental interference from another system." Thesara moved to a different console, her fingers dancing over the controls with surprising familiarity. "Alex, I need you to access the station's communication array logs. Look for any new transmissions or signals that began within the last day cycle." Alex's hands flew over his interface, pulling up communication records. "There," he said, highlighting a series of transmissions. "Deep Space Archaeological Probe activated yesterday. It's been sending regular data bursts back to the Vorthani homeworld." "The harmonics," Thesara breathed, her skin flashing bright gold. "Archaeological scanning. Equipment uses modified versions of atmospheric processing frequencies. If the probe's transmissions are bouncing off the station's hull, they could be creating interference patterns," Alex finished. "Can you calculate the counter-harmonic we'd need to cancel it out?" "Yes, but it's complex. I'll need to access both systems simultaneously, the station's processors and the probe's transmission array." She looked around the chaotic engineering bay. "And I'll need someone who understands human integration protocols to help me." "That's me," Alex said immediately. "Alex," Rodriguez called out. "The secondary systems are starting to fail. We've got maybe 4 hours before we start losing atmospheric integrity in the outer sectors. Then we better work fast," Alex said. The next 3 hours were the most intense of Alex's career. He and Thessara worked side by side, their hands often touching as they reached for the same controls, their minds seamlessly integrating human engineering pragmatism with Vorthani harmonic theory. They had to crawl through maintenance tunnels, recalibrate processing units by hand, and at one point, Alex found himself hanging upside down in a ventilation shaft while Thessara guided him through adjustments to acoustic dampeners. Frequency modulation at 4.7 terahertz, she called up to him, her voice echoing through the tunnel. Got it, Alex grunted, making the adjustment with tools that weren't quite designed for the task. How's that look? Better, but we need to fine-tune. The resonance coupling. Can you reach the secondary harmonizer? Alex stretched, his fingers just barely touching the component. Almost. Got it. The coupling clicked into place and immediately they could hear the station's atmospheric systems settling into a more stable rhythm. That's it, Thessara said, her skin glowing bright gold with relief. The interference pattern is dissipating. Alex dropped down from the ventilation shaft, landing closer to Thessara than he'd intended. They were both covered in grease and cooling fluid, exhausted from hours of high-stress work, but when their eyes met, everything else seemed to fade away. We did it, he said softly. We did, she agreed, her skin shifting to warm amber. Without thinking, Alex reached up to touch her face, brushing away a smudge of lubricant from her cheek. Thessara's breath caught, her skin brightening to radiant gold. Alex, she whispered. Yeah? I need to tell you something. Working with you like this, the way our minds connected, the way we understood each other without words. Among my people, that kind of synchronicity is considered the strongest indicator of true compatibility. Alex felt his heart racing. What are you saying? I'm saying that what I feel for you isn't just curiosity anymore. It's not just attraction. Her skin was practically luminous now. I'm falling in love with you, Alex Rivera, and I wanted you to know that because Vorthani don't dissemble about such things. Alex cupped her face in his hands, struck by how perfectly she fit against his palms. Thessara, atmospheric pressure stabilized in all sectors. Rodriguez's voice boomed across the engineering bay. Whatever you two did, it worked. But Alex barely heard him. All his attention was focused on the woman in his arms, whose skin was glowing like a star, and whose eyes held depths he wanted to explore for the rest of his life. I love you too, he said simply. Thessara's skin flashed so brightly that several other engineers turned to look, but she didn't seem to care. Instead, she rose up on her toes and kissed him, a soft, warm press of lips that tasted like starlight and possibility. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Alex realized that the entire engineering bay had gone quiet. Dozens of beings, from multiple species, were watching them with expressions ranging from amusement to approval to something that looked like envy. Well, Rodriguez called out with a grin, I guess the betting pool has a winner. Alex started to step back embarrassed, but Thessara caught his hand. Let them look, she said, her skin still glowing with contentment. I am not ashamed to love someone who just helped me save everyone on this station. Even if he's just a human who holds doors open? Alex asked. Especially then, she said, squeezing his fingers. Though I suspect there's much more to you than simple politeness. As the engineering teams began the process of verifying system stability, Alex and Thessara found themselves working together to document the solution they'd created. Their hands brushed constantly as they shared tools and controls, and Alex found himself increasingly aware of her warmth, her scent, the musical quality of her voice when she was focused. This will revolutionize atmospheric processing protocols, she said, reviewing their modifications. The integration of human adaptive engineering with Vorthani harmonic theory. It's elegant. We make a good team, Alex said. Yes, she agreed, looking up at him with those nebula eyes. We do. Later, as the crisis officially ended and the station returned to normal operations, Alex walked Thessara back to her quarters in the Vorthani sector. The corridors were quieter now, most beings having returned to their normal routines. "Alex," Thesara said as they reached her door. "What happens now? With us, I mean." "I don't know," he admitted. "But I'd like to find out, together." Her skin glowed warm gold. "Together," she agreed. "Though I should warn you, my family will be insufferable when they learn we've proven our compatibility under crisis conditions. It's considered highly auspicious. More insufferable than they already are about the whole door thing? Much more," she said with what he was learning to recognize as Vorthani humor. "They'll probably want to plan the bonding ceremony immediately." Alex took her hands in his, marveling again at how perfectly they fit together. "And what do you want?" "I want to court you properly," she said, "human style. I want to discover all the ways we fit together before we make any permanent commitments." "That sounds perfect," Alex said, and leaned down to kiss her again. This time, when her skin flared bright with joy, he understood exactly what it meant. 3 months after the atmospheric crisis, Alex found himself standing in his quarters, adjusting the collar of formal attire he'd never thought he'd wear, a hybrid outfit combining human dress traditions with Vorthani ceremonial elements. The jacket was Earth-standard black, but the shoulders were adorned with crystalline threading that caught the light like captured starlight, a gift from Thesara's family that had arrived with a note. "For the male who proved himself worthy of our daughter's heart." His hands shook slightly as he fastened the ceremonial clasp, not from nerves about the commitment but from the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Tonight wasn't just about him and Thesara, it was about creating something entirely new. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. "Come in," he called, expecting Thesara's cousin Velith, who'd volunteered to serve as his cultural guide for the evening. Instead, Thesara herself glided into his quarters, and Alex's breath caught. She wore robes that seemed to be woven from captured moonlight, flowing silver fabric that shifted between blue and gold as she moved. Her hair was arranged in an elaborate ceremonial style that left her neck bare, revealing the delicate bioluminescent patterns that traced along her collarbones, patterns that he'd learned only appeared when a Vorthani was deeply in love. "You look," he started, then stopped, unable to find words adequate to describe her beauty. "Radiant?" she suggested, her skin glowing with warm amber light. "That's what you said the first time you saw me in formal robes." "I was going to say perfect," Alex said, moving to take her hands. "But radiant works too." Her touch was warm and familiar now, her fingers intertwining with his in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "To declare my love for you in front of half the station using a ceremony we invented ourselves? Absolutely terrifying and completely ready." Thesara laughed, the sound like crystal chimes. "The Vorthani Council is calling it unprecedented cultural fusion. My father used the term romantic revolution." "And what do you call it?" "Perfect," she said, echoing his earlier word. "A ceremony that honors both our traditions without being bound by either." The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of negotiation, compromise, and discovery. After their first dinner date, a memorable evening where Thesara had systematically sampled every item on the menu while explaining the biochemical compatibility of each, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm of shared meals, long conversations, and slowly deepening intimacy. The challenges had been significant. Vorthani relationships operated on completely different timescales than human ones. They thought in terms of decades where humans counted months. Their concept of privacy was almost non-existent, with family involvement expected at every stage. And their emotional directness, while refreshing, had taken Alex time to adjust to. But the rewards had been extraordinary. Thesara approached love the way she approached archaeology, with intense focus, careful study, and genuine wonder at each new discovery. She'd mapped the texture of his skin like she was cataloging artifacts, memorized his expressions like she was learning a new language, and approached their physical intimacy with a combination of scientific curiosity and deep emotional connection that left Alex breathless. "The observers are arriving," Thesara said, checking her timepiece. Representatives from 14 species, including a delegation from the Vorthani High Council, and your sister calling in from Earth. Sarah's going to love this, Alex said, thinking of his sister's reaction when he'd told her he was in love with an alien archaeologist. She'd demanded video calls, cultural briefings, and a complete relationship timeline before finally declaring to Sarah, perfect for you, even if she is 7 feet tall and glows. They made their way to Observation Deck 3, which had been transformed for the ceremony. Traditional Vorthani harmony crystals hung from the ceiling, their light patterns synchronized with human string quartet music that created an otherworldly ambiance. Tables held both earth flowers and Vorthani bioluminescent plants, creating a garden that seemed to pulse with life. The assembled guests were a testament to just how much their relationship had captured the station's imagination. Commander Torres sat with the senior staff, while Alex's engineering colleagues mingled with Thesara's research team. The Vorthani delegation occupied one section, their formal robes creating a sea of shifting colors, while representatives from other species filled the remaining spaces. Look at them, Thesara murmured as they paused at the entrance. So many different beings, all here to witness something that's never happened before. Getting nervous? Alex asked. Exhilarated, she corrected. We're making history, Alex. The first human Vorthani bonding ceremony, the first time my people have adapted their traditions for another species. Centuries from now, xenoanthropologists will study what we're doing tonight. No pressure, Alex said dryly. The ceremony they'd designed was a careful blend of both cultures. It began with Vorthani harmonic singing, the assembled guests joining in a complex musical pattern that made the air itself seem to vibrate with intention. Then came human elements, the exchange of rings, personal vows, and the presentation of each partner to the other's family. But it was the new elements, the traditions they'd created together, that made the evening truly special. Thesara Vash Korhaven, Alex said when it came time for their personal vows, his voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. 3 months ago, you changed my life by walking through a door I held open. Tonight, I want to promise you something more. I will always hold the door open for you, literally and metaphorically. I will clear your path when I can, support you when I can't, and stand beside you as we explore whatever comes next. Thesara's skin glowed so brightly that several guests shielded their eyes, but her voice was steady as she replied. Alex Rivera, you taught me that love doesn't require formal protocols or family negotiations. It requires only 2 people willing to discover each other completely. I promise to love you with Vorthani intensity and human flexibility, to honor both our traditions and create new ones, and to spend however many decades we have learning new ways to surprise each other. The rings they exchanged were works of art. Alex's was carved from Vorthani harmony crystal that would glow in response to Thesara's emotions, while hers was embedded with a fragment of Earth meteorite that had traveled between worlds just as their love had. But the most meaningful moment came when they performed the ritual they'd created together, the joining of paths. Instead of traditional Vorthani threshold crossing or human unity candles, they'd designed something new, a holographic projection that showed their home systems, Earth and Vorthak, connected by a bridge of light that represented their love, spanning the stars. Let this light remind us, Thesara said as the projection filled the room, that love recognizes no boundaries of species, culture, or distance. And let it remind everyone who sees it, Alex added, that the best traditions are the ones we create together. As the ceremony concluded and the celebration began, Alex found himself pulled into dozens of conversations. Dr. Yuki from Medical wanted to discuss the implications for future interspecies relationships. Commander Torres was already planning policy updates for mixed-species couples. Even the Zilari ambassador, normally reserved, approached to congratulate them on expanding the definition of diplomatic relations. But it was the message from the Vorthani High Council that surprised him most. Alexander Rivera, the formal communication began. Your adaptation of our bonding traditions has been deemed not only acceptable but exemplary. The Council recognizes you as the first human to achieve full cultural integration status with our people. You are hereby granted the title Courthaven Vash Thessera, Threshold Guardian of Thessera. What does that mean exactly? Alex asked. Thessera later, as they finally had a moment alone on the observation deck. It means you're officially part of my family line, she said, her skin glowing with contentment as she leaned against his shoulder. Your children will carry Vorthani naming traditions. Your achievements will be recorded in our historical archives. And if you ever visit the homeworld, you'll be welcomed as family. Alex looked out at the stars visible through the deck's transparent aluminum windows. Our children, he said softly. We've never talked about that. Vorthani human hybrid. Offspring are theoretically possible, Thessera said carefully, though it would require genetic compatibility testing and probably some medical assistance. Is that something you'd want? Someday? Her skin shifted to warm gold. With you? Yes. Though I should warn you, Vorthani children don't start developing their adult coloration until they're nearly 30. You'd have to deal with decades of teenagers whose skin can't lie about their emotions. Alex laughed, imagining the chaos. Sounds terrifying and wonderful. Most of the best things are, Thessera agreed. 6 months later, Alex stood in the same maintenance bay where they'd first met, watching Thessera work with her latest research team. A mixed group of humans, Vorthani, and 3 other species, all studying the integration of different cultural technologies. She'd been appointed head of the station's new interspecies cultural exchange program. A position created specifically for her after their bonding ceremony sparked a wave of interest in cross-cultural relationships. The harmonic resonance patterns are stabilizing, she called out to her team, her skin glowing with the satisfaction of successful research. Document everything. This could revolutionize how we approach technological integration. Alex smiled, remembering how nervous he'd been about holding a door open for a stranger. Now that stranger was his wife, his research partner, and his closest friend. They'd created something unprecedented. Not just a marriage, but a new model for how different species could build lives together. His communicator buzzed with a message from Torres. Rivera, we just received a request from the Centauri station. They want to know if you and Thessera would be willing to consult on their new interspecies relations program. Apparently, 3 more human-alien couples have formed there in the last month, and they're calling it the Kepler effect. Alex was still laughing when Thessera finished her work and joined him. What's so amusing? She asked, her skin shifting to curious blue. We're apparently starting a trend, he said, showing her the message. Other stations want to replicate what we've done here. Interspecies relations as a replicable model, she mused. That's fascinating from an anthropological perspective. And from a personal perspective? Thessera's skin glowed warm gold as she kissed him, right there in the maintenance bay where it all began. From a personal perspective, I'm proud that our love is inspiring others to take chances on connection across difference. As they walked back to their shared quarters, a space that perfectly blended human comfort with Vorthani aesthetics, Alex reflected on how completely his life had changed. He'd come to Kepler Station looking for adventure, and found something infinitely better, a love that had not only transformed him, but was helping to transform how entire species related to each other. Alex, Thessera said as they reached their Torch, do you ever regret holding that door open? Never, he said, pulling her close, and best mistake I ever made. It wasn't a mistake, she corrected, her skin shifting to that deep amber color that meant profound contentment. It was the first step in creating something entirely new. And as they entered their home together, Alex had to agree. Sometimes, the smallest gestures, holding a door, offering kindness to a stranger, choosing love over fear, could change everything. Behind them, the stars continued their ancient dance, and somewhere in the vast space between worlds, other beings were probably discovering that love, like the universe itself, was far more expansive and full of possibility than anyone had ever imagined. The Kepler Station Cultural Exchange Center had become a hub of interspecies research and relationship counseling, with Alex and Thessera serving as the primary consultants for what was now officially called the the Threshold Protocol, a comprehensive guide for navigating cross-species relationships. Their work had been adopted by 17 different stations and 3 planetary colonies, leading to what xenosociologists were calling the most significant expansion of interspecies bonding in recorded history. But the real measure of their success wasn't in the academic papers or the policy changes. It was in the small moments. The way Thesara's skin still glowed when Alex surprised her with Earth coffee, the way Alex had learned to read her emotional colors like a second language, and the way they'd created a home that honored both their backgrounds while being uniquely theirs. And yes, there was still the occasional cultural misunderstanding, like the time Alex had accidentally proposed to 3 different Vorthani women in 1 week by being overly helpful with doors. But those were the kinds of problems that came with expanding the boundaries of what love could look like across the stars. Some traditions were worth preserving, others were worth creating, and the best ones, Alex had learned, were the ones built on the simple recognition that connection was possible anywhere, anytime, between any 2 beings willing to hold the door open for each other.